Welcome to the sweet, sweet college life. Plot twist, as a mature student. Who came up with that anyway? Mature, obviously, they clearly had their shit together way more than I did, and way more than I probably still do. And, sorry. So I'm one of those starts things and never finishes things kind of people. I'm a crazy procrastinator. And no, it's not because I get my best ideas when it's down to the wire. Just so you all know, that's bullshit. And anybody who tells you that is lying. The entire concept behind procrastinating and why it's so appealing to people like myself is the adrenaline rush that you get at 5 in the morning when you're hyped up on caffeine and cigarettes and the deadline's approaching. Suck at this. Thank you. Oh, but it's a beautiful and terrifying drug. It costs nothing, and you're really only risking a heart attack like 20 years down the road, when the stress of it all sends you up shit creek without a paddle. Hashtag winning. I have procrastinated my way to 30, 10 to 15 years away from that magical heart attack number. And count 'em, 5 prior attempts at post-secondary education. And it had led me to this very moment, this make it or break it moment, break it referring to my busted ass bank account. From all of my cumulative student loans and my adventures in drunky drunkard adulting land. But here I was, in all of my mature glory, returning to school, and I was going to finally finish something, come hell or high water. My first class was something completely useless, called professional development. Dude, I could professional in my sleep, clearly. I had professionally developed my uneducated ass into a pretty lucrative career in consulting online at the tender age of 26. I completely threw myself under the bus, and I assumed that this was going to be one of those elusive bird courses, and that I was just going to fly right through it. Except this little birdie hit the window pretty quickly when she discovered that the first assignment was to build a resume. I learned very quickly that my resume was completely outdated and so god-awful boring that it would never even grace the desk of a potential employer. It was a complete dud, doomed to end its 15-year run at the bottom of a coffee-laden garbage can, crumpled up and stuck to the side with a wad of chewed-up dentine ice, and saddled next to a 3-day-old peach. What the hell was happening here? Almost every one of my classes proceeded in a similar fashion, except for statistics because, well, mathing. I found myself struggling to put 2 and 2 together, pretty much because I can't add. And apparently, I thought I already knew everything about business. And man, I tell you, the struggle was so real when I realized I actually knew butt kiss. I thought I had my shit together. I mean, when I was in high school, the grades always came easy, when I applied myself. But when I didn't, I sat pretty in the funny girl category, snickering at the teachers, and generally being a smartass. Except at 30, it isn't so funny anymore. And your teachers aren't these alien adults who are, in actuality, just school-time parents from 9 till 3. As a 30-year-old, they're more like your peers. Peers you pay thousands of dollars to hang out with you twice a week and grade you for how much of it you remember. And it's not remembering any of the latest hot gossip from the beauty salon. It's real life shit. Not only did I have to bridge the gap between sort of adulting, now I also had to contend with this foreign concept that my teachers were real human beings. And we were all in the same pod. They only cared as much as I did, and I would have to rely on myself. What the hell? The most pivotal moment of my adventure in mature learning came from a one-off conversation with one of my professors. Let's call him Bob for the sake of this story. And no, it wasn't Bob Millard. I'm sure some of you know Bob. Bob was a perma-frazzled intellectual who had somehow found himself buried beneath his station in life, teaching at a community college. He had a wife, a dog, 2.5 children, just living the nuclear fam jam dream. He was perpetually exhausted, which my childless spinster self generally attributes to having children. I assumed incorrectly. Our conversation started innocently enough. I had asked to meet with him during office hours for some feedback on a paper that I had written. He nearly leapt out of his seat, citing both the quality and the thoughtfulness of my paper, but what had him completely shook was my mad grammar skills. Somewhere between my oh shucks and his fangirling, he asked if he could keep a copy to share as an example for future students. That's when the ominous dark cloud began to descend, first over his face and then over the entire office. The manic glee that had enveloped him only moments before began shifting to bitter resentment as he began to unload what appeared to be years of frustration over the new crop of damn kids who just didn't give a shit about their college educations. As he spewed acid, the darkness descended further, and I began to feel like I was a few short quips away from the infamous Janet Leigh shower scene in Psycho. Beep, beep, beep. I had never heard a teacher speak ill of their students before, and certainly not with such obvious seething disdain. But the twisted part of me was kind of enjoying it, and I was intrigued by this bizarre specimen, this completely burned out man. I'm sorry about the burnout. This completely burned out man who was either spiking his coffee throughout the day with cheap rye or who was very close to it. He was fighting so hard to be heard by this new generation of hamster attention span young adults. And against my better judgment, I actually found myself sympathizing with him. Somewhere in there, he may have even made the age-old bitter pun about if these idiots are the future, we're completely screwed. And he kept running his fingers through his hair as though somehow that might keep his head from exploding. He ended his tirade abruptly, looked at me with tired and grave eyes, and expressed his gratitude to me for actually wanting and trying to learn. I almost vomited. When had I become a star student? Were we friending? I was going to have to be friends with this freak on Facebook. And wait, teachers are really just parents who get paid to put up with my shit. Was I parenting? Jesus, help me now. I stumbled out of his office, disgusted, appalled, and maybe just a little bit giddy. My 16-year-old self couldn't wait to, tell my BFF that Bob was, a total weirdo. But my 30-year-old self felt an immense amount of respect for this man and discovered that it was kind of neat to be a favorite student. I could take a step back, see exactly what he was saying, and I felt as though Bob and I had to stick together as mature adults. Throughout the remainder of my time in college, I found joy in throwing myself into assignments and becoming the knowledge sponge that speaks before you today. There were no assholes in the back of the room guffawing and calling me a nerd for answering questions. The pretty girls came to me for help. My old ass was wise. More and more, I found myself networking with my professors, getting to know them, and learning from them. I brown-nosed my way to the top of my damn class, and I don't give a rat's ass who knows it. I had not expected this symbiotic learning environment, and would have never been ready for it had it not been for Bob's nervous breakdown. And finishing my 2-year business diploma from Loyalist College still is one of the most defining moments of my life. My mother finally saw me graduate. My poor mother, who had always been proud of me, even when there really wasn't anything to be proud of. Hey Ma, thanks for coming tonight. How incredible it was to finally prove to myself what she had always known, that there's no place like home. That's probably the wrong story. But actually, that I was always capable of finishing anything that I set my mind to, and that I could do it freaking well. Thanks.
Yeah.